with a ton of guests. Very excited. And yeah, there we go. Things are started on YouTube. Oh, yeah. Easy, squeezy, lemon peasy, as I like to say. And we're going to get it started right about... What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
And we're coming to you live from a couple places on the internet. We're live over at Crowdcast, live at YouTube. Maybe you're listening later as an audio podcast, wherever fine audio podcasts are sold. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, we appreciate it. And we got a packed show for you, so packed that we needed to start without Justin. He says he's going to be here at some point.
He's pitching stuff. He's a big time.
He's pitching.
Yeah, he's pitching meetings, ideas,
I think, I don't know, I might be wrong about this. He texted us just now. He's like, I'm in the middle of a pitch. I feel like he's at like Baskin Robbins pitching them new flavors. And I'm not talking about the corporate headquarters. I'm talking like his local Baskin Robbins. He's like, I don't know. What if it was like,
hear me out.
Pistachios and almonds, and they're both in there. It's
no, it's Justin. He's pitching pickle flavors. He's like,
100%.
Pickle ice cream. Come on.
Pickle ice cream. Come on. We'll have to check with him when he comes on. If he does actually come on, listen. If it's a successful pitch, he's going to be knee deep in pickle ice cream by the end of the show. So he's not even going to make it here.
He's going to die happy.
Yes, he is going to die happy, and I'm going to die happy because we have a packed show for you. So packed that I'm going to bring in our first guest right now. He is the creator of a comic called ROUGAROU. His name is Giles Clarke, and it is available now. Giles, welcome to the show. Hello.
Welcome.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I like how perfectly your head is framed by the poster of your own comic book. That's good branding.
Yeah, it's actually a standee I use when I go to conventions. It's really helpful.
Oh, very nice. Well, let's talk about this book, which is a really grody horror book. Why don't you pitch the concept to folks who don't necessarily know it?
Let's see. It's called ROUGAROU, and it's based on a actual cryptid from Cajun folklore. It's sort of a Cajun werewolf creature, and I first learned about it when I lived in Savannah, Georgia, lived in that area, and I found out about it. And I wanted to tell a horror story that was sort of a combination of folklores of the Americas. So it blends a lot from Cajun folklore to Native American and American folklore and everything in between. And begins in 1868 on a Colorado homestead ranch where a young girl is attacked by a mysterious creature. And the next morning, the U.S. Marshal shows up and recounts the tale of the ROUGAROU, beast that he's been tracking across the U.S., but he's always one step behind. And that's the overall story of it. It's encapsulated a single issue, one-shot comic, and it's going to be in stores September 28th this month. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excited.
So this is not that I'm like the hardcore into cryptid guys necessarily, but I feel like there's stuff that everybody knows. Like they know the Chupacabra, they know the Jersey Devil, maybe, a couple of others like that, Mothman, perhaps. But I hadn't heard of this one. What was it about this cryptid in particular that drew you to the idea?
Well, honestly, it was because nobody had really heard about it. Like out in the region, it's very well known. Like I think there's even a minor league baseball team in Louisiana called the ROUGAROUs. And so because of that, when I was in this area, I thought, why has nobody ever heard of this thing? Why have they, there's never seen it in a movie, never seen it in a TV series or anything like that. I'm sure it probably has been at this point, but it sort of sat in the back of my brain for years. And then when I came out here, I was looking to do a story that was from a Western, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to bring that character forward into this and encapsulate a lot of the tropes of horror and Westerns and folklore that I really enjoyed, and bringing it all into one story. That's where it came from.
When you're doing a monster story like this, how far is too far in terms of gore, in terms of tearing limbs off and things like that, or is there no too far?
I mean, I guess it depends on the story that you're trying to tell there. I think that we went probably a hard level of PG-13 with the gore and the horror in this. I didn't want to make it something that was just horrible to look at. And but I thought that I wanted to really encapsulate in those early stage pages that, yeah, this is a beast to be reckoned with. And this is something that really set the stakes for the rest of the story, so that you know that what the marshal is up against in his chase across the U.S. is dangerous.
Cool.
Given, I know you already said this was a one-shot, but given that you did set this in the past, is there any interest in maybe creating a second issue of this, set in the present, set in another time period? Do you feel like there's more of the story to tell?
Absolutely. I think that the story could absolutely be continued in a different anthology, but I wanted to make sure that when we're putting this book out, it would be a single issue that you could read through and get a beginning, middle, and end of the story. And something I felt was important, especially since we're coming out right now in the Halloween season. I wanted everybody to sort of have that ghost story, that folklore to read through. The story could continue, but I always hate when you get to the last page, you're like, oh, I got to wait until the second one or the third one to finally find out what happens. I think that when you're introducing characters or a story, it's important to give the audience a full beginning, middle, and end to it. And then if you can continue that story on, that will give them the runway to come along with you for the journey there. But getting that full story is what really will make them want to go on in the future.
Given that, then go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, we had talked a little bit about just kind of the scariness of it. And, right from the beginning, we kind of meet this nice lady, and then she immediately dies. So it really has this kind of sense of nobody's safe, like anybody could kind of fall victim. So it does instill this kind of like tenseness, which is, I think, great especially for what you're trying to do.
And just a quick question to pivot off of what Pete's saying. When you do bring in the nice lady, do you feel like that character knows Jerry Lewis or something like that? Right, Pete?
Oh, man, you're funny. You're funny. This is the part. I'm sorry that you got to be here for this, but this is just ball busting here, so I'm sorry.
Given that you're not necessarily doing a second shot at the moment of this book, what else can people look forward to from you?
Well, coming out next year, we've got a 6-issue limited series in a completely different vein. It's a sci-fi comedy set in 1950s Hollywood. Wow. And it's called The World of Tomorrow, and it follows the adventures of a man named Craig Barstow. He's the burned-out lead actor on the formerly #1 sci-fi show of the 1950s, now a little past his prime. And we meet him on the day he finds out the show's getting canceled and he's out of a job. And when the mob comes calling for his unpaid gambling debts, a failed hit job leaves him delusional and believing he actually is the show's valiant protagonist, Captain Cal Armstrong. So now battling with bouts of delusion where he believes this is his character and seeing the world as this 1950s sci-fi landscape and snapping back to reality in situations that he has no idea how he got himself into. He's got 24 hours to keep his show on the air, get the mob off his tail, and regain his sanity all before the show's final broadcast. So that's a 6-issue series. Originally, I wanted to launch with that. That was going to be our premiere 6-issue series. But with COVID and the shutdown with Diamond Comic Distributors and our submission package, by the time their offices sort of opened back up and they got our submission package, they said the earliest we can get you in is October. I said, wait, let's put the brakes on the sci-fi comedy. I've got a horror book that would be perfect to come out into stores in late September, early October. So we launched. ROUGAROU will be our first in-store launch in the end of this month on September 28th. And then going through the holidays, and then next spring we'll be putting out World of Tomorrow, but you can see previews of it on the website. And if you see me at a convention, I'll be at the LA Comic-Con in December. You can pick up the whole series there.
Cool.
That's awesome. Giles, congratulations. Looking forward to people checking it out when it officially launches later this month. And thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
Right, have a good night.
Congrats.
All right, there we go. Once again, I'm going to mispronounce the name of the book, but ROUGAROU, even though he said it like 15 times, I'm sorry.
Sure did.
But Giles Clark, definitely check it out. And tell you what, I'm going to bring in a special guest star here, fresh off the Baskin Robbins. He is plumb full of rum raisin, Justin Tyler, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the
Hey,
show.
everybody. Sorry, I had a meeting that ran long, and I also have a blood feud with Giles.
Wow.
There we go. Yeah, listen, we talked about this a little bit before, and not to blow up your spot, we talked about how you were doing a pitch meeting at Baskin Robbins for some new flavors. How'd it go?
You know what? They've been needed to add a 30-second. They're just not willing to take some risks because meat is a sort of the undiscovered frontier of ice cream.
Oh, wow. Pete should have predicted the meat. He went for pickles instead. He thought you were going to do a pickle
sure
flavor.
you were going to do a pickled flavor.
First you get the meat, then you get the pickles.
Oh, man. It's how illogical of me.
Wow, illogical. Okay. How are you
well,
guys?
listen,
I've missed you.
We missed you too very much. And we missed you so much, I want to talk about other people, specifically
You're seeing
our
other people.
Patreon supporters. Our Patreon supporters, if that's okay. Now, this is something we usually do this at the top of the show, but we prefer to do it when it's all three of us. So we're going to do it here.
So we
in the
need
middle
all
once.
three of us.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Otherwise, it's a total disaster. We, once a month, pay tribute to some of the awesome people who support us over at
Couldn't do
patreon.com/comic book
without
club. For real. And we read off your names. So this is the list you're going to hear right now. And I'm going to kick it off with Otis Larson,
Aaron C. Hollis,
Aaron Howarth,
Adam DeRose,
Adam Horowitz,
Adam Marks,
Adriel Moreland,
Alana Fontenot,
Amanda Harris,
Andrew.
Andrew Primo,
Andrew Tillman.
I felt like I was cheating there.
I know,
Beer
that's
Cat
really
PhD,
Benjamin Brown,
Carly W.
Carrie Matthews,
Chelsea Mack,
Chris Leatherman.
Christina Jaramello,
Christina Resenfield,
Rensfield. Chris Terlizzi.
Clemens Luer,
Corby Dorby Doodle,
Curtis LaRock.
Deman Ryan,
Dan Snow,
Daniel Cabral.
Daniel Fuentes,
Danny Heck,
Debbie Gloom.
Dennis Scott,
Derek Mainhart,
Dylan L.J.
Eduardo Martinez,
Emmett Quish,
Aaron Dorian.
Jeffrey Risher,
Gerard de Villiers,
Wow, perfect every time. Isaac Carter.
Jake Fry,
James Connolly,
James Kurtz.
Jason Donahue,
Jeffrey Whaley,
John George.
Jonathan Jug,
Jonathan McCool,
Joshua Fryer.
Joshua W. Broxson,
Julian Labato,
Catherine Annenson.
Casey Newhaven, kind of
Kevin
excited,
Grimes,
Kevin Kleinrock.
Kieran Broderick,
Cody Thomas,
Kyle.
Luana Thomas,
Lucas Sink,
Mark Zeller.
Matt Tice,
Matthew C. Hernandez,
Megan Thigpen.
Michael Tillman,
Nelson Kelso Martinez,
Nick Grayson.
Off-White Savior,
official CBC chef Brett Macris, a.k.a. Stray Bullies,
My guy, Omnia Soul Art.
Oren Dix,
Pablo Martinez,
Pedro A. Rangel.
Pete's Pretty Kitty,
Prata Bolly G,
Provocative Ambulance.
whoa,
Rev Mikey,
Robert Petnot,
Sarah Schopmuller.
Sarah Schaefer,
Scott Carpenter,
Scott England.
Stanley,
Tamelia Rush,
Taylor Bryan.
Terrible Jason,
The Big Flood,
The 12 Bench.
Thomas Glenn,
Victor Perez,
Will Buchanan.
Zachary Backman.
and Zika's Viral Comics.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, so much for letting us mangle your names. We appreciate it. You're all awesome. If you would like to support us, again, there's many levels, and you get some great bonuses, like access to our Patreon Slack, which is very active and fun to chat in, and also our back catalog from 2011 on. So that is hundreds, if not thousands, I know, of podcasts
What a
for you to
record
listen
to
to.
leave behind. I just wanted
There you go.
playing on loop. That was great.
In your grave, so your dead body has to listen to it.
Yeah, I know. Loud enough that the above the earth can hear it.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll see what happens. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we read two more names, bring in our next two guests here. They are both working at Zestworld, Chris Gilberti and Phil Jimenez. Chris, welcome to the show. Hello. How are you?
Hey, thank you. It's so great to be here.
Oh my gosh. We're just waiting for Phil to come in, but excited to have you here. While we're waiting for him to come in, why don't you set up for folks what Zestworld is?
Sure, yeah. So Zestworld is a creator platform for comic book artists. So it's like Patreon, but like a little bit better. It's specifically for comic book creators. And it's a place where they can distribute their comics to their fans directly over email newsletter or through our platform on the website. And they can set up a subscription service where they could charge their fans for their work, with all sorts of different tiers. And they can also accept commissions from their fans, just like you would do at a Comic-Con, but from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, I was checking out the website earlier. It is awesome, and it's also really easy when you got a phone and you're trying to read comics. Like the way it's set up for that is it's such a nice experience reading your comics on this platform. So I was super impressed as someone who has to kind of like pinch and do all sorts of stuff when I'm reading comics. So
he loves a pinch. Great. I feel like so many comic platforms, or some, are sort of getting worse, Comixology, but it's so great to see a platform that is truly tailored to the comic experience.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was, we felt that it was about time. Yeah, glad you like it.
Cool.
Here, I'm just to give you a little backstage. I'm gonna kick Phil out and try to invite him again. Sometimes that works here. But while we're doing that, Chris, for you again, where did this idea start? Like, it's always very hard to launch not just a new, I don't know if you want to call it a publisher, but like not just a new publisher, but a new platform, a new Kickstarter type thing. So that's a big undertaking, but it's got to start with the germ of an idea. So what was that germ?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up a nerd in New Jersey, reading comics. So I've always been a lover of the medium. In my adult career, I worked in media and entertainment for the last decade. First on the business side as a management consultant, and then as an entrepreneur at a company called Gimlet Media. So I know we all love podcasts here.
We must.
Exactly. So, putting it all together, my passion for the space and my experience as both a business nerd and a startup person, when Gimlet sold to Spotify a few years back, I knew it was time for my next adventure and wanted to start something in the world of comics. Of course, the first thing you learn about the comics business when you go down the sort of business nerd rabbit hole is just the incredible franchise value that titles that Marvel and DC have created. Like literally the biggest properties in the world, have their roots in comics. But shockingly, the creators have not participated really in any of that. Meanwhile, there's this whole movement across entertainment, with platforms like Patreon and Kickstarter and Substack, where there's this, proven viability of creators building a livelihood with their 500 to 1,000 most passionate fans. And, just kind of putting it all together, felt like now is the time to create a platform specifically for the comics community because thank you. Because the needs of comic creators are actually, fairly idiosyncratic and they're not super well served by these one-size-fits-all platforms. Like just even the fact that, we have commissions and publishing sitting alongside each other on our platform, and there's a really elegant, tailored solution there.
Wait, we got Phil. Hey, there you are.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. This is occasionally a very buggy platform, so almost definitely not.
We need a new platform. Can we work on that?
Don't worry about me because Chris is doing amazing right now. And so you should please continue.
Wait, well, while we have an interruption here, I actually wanted to tee up something that I wanted to tee up at the beginning. So during our Patreon name read through, you might have heard that we mentioned official CBC chef Brett Macris. That's actually kind of not a joke. Brett Macris is a legit, well-renowned chef in New Orleans, and what he does is every week he curates a drink for the show with our Patreon Slack. We've done stuff from the Gotham cocktail book, among many other things. Sometimes there's some jokey things. Sometimes it's just beer or anything like that. But what he did this week is he actually created a cocktail for Zestworld. So I'm going to share the recipe with you now. Yeah, it is called Around the Zestworld. I'm going to read it off for anybody listening to the podcast, but it's bourbon, grapefruit, lemon juice, orange juice, honey syrup, and a grapefruit peel. I'll read the directions. You chill a cocktail glass in a shaker, combine ingredients, and shake vigorously. Pour into your chilled cocktail glass. Express the zest over the cocktail and around the rim. And wrap the zest around the inside of the glass. Wrap it around the Zestworld, if you will. He has some notes about measurements, and he says, now sip and check out Zestworld.com and see what Phil Jimenez and the other artists are doing all around Zestworld. So yeah, there you go. I did make one of them tonight, and it is delicious, just like your website. So there you go.
Chris, you were mid-sentence, though. I don't want to get, blow past what you were saying, though, Chris. I don't want you to completely
Pete's hanging on every word here. It's great.
Oh, no. I was all done with that rant. No, this is
you
great.
Sure?
Let's
Okay.
talk about the Zestworld drink. No, I love it. I mean, before Zestworld, I worked at Gimlet, so I only work at companies
you only
that have
work
an
at
alcoholic beverage. Thank you for doing that for me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, why don't we go over to you then? You have a great project on Zestworld. What drew you to the platform? What interested in you about it as an artist, as a creator?
It was actually about a summer ago when fellow author Alex Segura and I were hanging out in Cape Cod of all places, and he'd asked if I'd heard about Zestworld and if I knew about Chris. And he actually spoke incredibly highly of Chris and this new platform. And he encouraged me to reach out, and I did. That's literally just how it happened. And then Chris and I met in New York City. It was really terrific. And the thing that interested me most about the platform was quite frankly, the challenge of it, right? Because these are not traditional comics, they're scroll comics. And after 30 years of telling comics in one format, I was particularly excited about the possibility of telling it in another, in a whole new delivery system. And he was going to allow me to play with some old characters from mine, a sort of old creator project and sort of rebuild it. Oh, wow. And I was thrilled that I got this opportunity because I've been looking for a home for this project for a long, long time. So that's really sort of how it was. And then it's been a period of learning this new format, because scroll comics are trickier than you imagine. And what has continued to excite me about it are the other artists and creators that Chris has actually gathered, particularly in this phase 2. It's been really, really exciting. It feels to me like Zestworld's a really, I sound like a company guy, but it's a super forward-looking company. And it's being developed, I haven't told Chris this yet, but I remember talking to my art dealer many years ago about what would be an ideal sort of platform for creators. And I've been feeling validated because Chris has built it. And a lot of what Chris is doing for us is sort of what has made it really exciting to work on. So there's been a learning curve, because not only am I learning scroll comics, but I'm basically I'm doing my first sort of creator-owned book outside the umbrella of a sort of larger corporation. So everything from hiring and managing colorists and writers, and even I have a wonderful editor, Ivan Brandon.
Yeah, we know Ivan.
So part of the excitement of this whole project, was, what do you do when you've done something for 30 years? And then you do this. And you do it with a company that is actually forward-thinking and actually, for me, really progressive and thoughtful about its creators and its content, and kind of wants to do good in the world. That's a really, not to derail too hard, but it's a really big deal for me at this point in my career and my age, is to work for a company that I think wants to do good things as best they can in any sort of corporate way. And
Awesome.
Chris has really sort of tailored the company to be just that.
And what's exciting about that, I think, just from my perspective, is that so many the comic platforms that we gravitate to weren't built for comic books. They were just like, oh, we landed here, so let's just make this work. And it's just like, oh, you know what? We owe it to ourselves as readers, as creators, to be like, you know what? Why don't we do something nice? Why don't we make it a little nice for ourselves and put it all together in a way that makes it easier for everyone who's creating and consuming this content that we love, and that is what entertainment is now at the top of the chain, you know.
Plus, it's great because after you read something you like, there's this thing where it's like, hey, you can get their stuff. It's all like one-stop shop, so it's really it's a win-win. Not only is it a better reading experience, but you also get to kind of support the artists that you're reading and liking right there. So it's really great.
And I know it sounds like we literally invest in this company, but we don't. We just found out about it, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
It is a legitimately, I mean, as I keep saying, because I'm the old guy here, but I've worked for a lot of companies, corporate comic companies and smaller companies, toy companies, Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. And it's really nice to work for a company and a platform that is so thoughtful about the way it's delivering content, so considerate about the creators. Like, they want the creators to do well, and they want to make sure that they give best opportunity, give us strongest, the most amount of support as well to do just that, right? With also, I think, the idea that the happier we are, ostensibly the better the product is, so the better it will be for the consumers who are supporting us, right? And to have kind of, the nice thing is that we have a pretty direct link to the people who are reading our stuff on the site and through other social media. And so it just makes for a really nice exchange, right? Like, I have a great life because people have supported me. And it's nice to be able to give back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you're also really good at your job. I mean, let's not forget that.
Yeah, I mean, simply one Eisner.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Oh, yes.
There it is.
Oh,
There it is.
all right.
Yeah. I do not mean to belittle. I'm just saying it's a nice. It's just a lot of gratitude. Like, I think it's very easy, and I've certainly succumbed to it in a world that can be really hard sometimes not to be grateful, right? But we are here on this podcast talking about making comics, making entertainment, drawing pictures, and creating fantasies for people and interacting with them, and I think that's a real gift, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Chris, I wanted to ask you, you've touched on this a little bit, and this happened a couple of months ago, but you also have a really aggressively positive policy towards creator rights on the platform in terms of who owns what, how things can be developed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think, Phil sort of put it best. It's like we've just aligned our incentives completely with creators because, this is an industry where the audience follows the creators, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so if we win the creators, our feeling is that, we'll win as a platform. So to us, it's a no-brainer to just line those things up, because it's good for everybody. So yeah, I mean, all of the IP rights, are with the creators. My background is in television and film. I, produced Homecoming and a bunch of other projects when I was at Gimlet. I just observed firsthand that this is the direction that the entire industry really, I think, is heading. I do think over the long term, the moral arc of Hollywood bends towards the creator. And so,
I
think
that take.
Yeah, I mean, that's really how I feel. And I think that just, locking arms with creators and aligning our incentives together, if Phil and I decide to do something together in television or film, we'll be doing it in a model that, it works great for both of us. And I don't need to participate in Phil's IP rights to help him there and to do something together that's cool and mutually beneficial. it's just sort of a fallacy that that's the way that things even need to work, because there are a lot of people that work on a TV show or a movie, and you don't, as a producer, need to, hit the IP rights holder, and control their pot of money. It doesn't really make any sense.
Well, you probably know about this, but we found out about the line producer job here and how much work that is, and we've been really kind of
That one.
Yeah, it's a tough job. It's a tough job. It deserves credit.
This is perhaps a running bit. We're just to clarify what's going on.
Just to clarify, Pete doesn't know exactly what he's talking about. But I mean, I agree with you. I think the comics industry is a bit of a dinosaur, at least sort of in the more corporate side of it, that the creators aren't at the center and are somehow in the shuffle of it while the rights stay up in the offices. So it's really exciting to see that, to hear that is your goal, because I agree with you completely. Like, creator driven is the only way to do anything now, and to generate excitement for any project in any medium, I think.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm curious from you, since there are all these amazing creators like yourself on the platform, is there any collaboration that's going on between any of you, or is it mostly about everybody kind of doing their own thing and leading into their own projects?
The projects are currently ours, but so one of the things that actually really got me into this was there's been, I think we're still just trying to figure out the format. The idea of getting us all together to either do sort of online shows, to do mini conventions, to do just talks like that. Like when, for example, I found out Joel Jones was on, like my head exploded. Like I was so excited. It was actually really lovely. This is gonna sound really funny, but to be super excited about the other creators, I'm like, oh shit, you got so and so, that's amazing, right? Like so I'm actually really looking forward to collaborating with them in different ways. If not necessarily with our art, but in conversation, right? Like that. So I was just complaining recently, or talking to some peers, like I am one of those freelancers who tends to be fairly isolated from, I never worked in a studio. And so the nice thing about this platform is I get to sort of communicate with the other artists really easily and freely, and we can do it in a way that we can interact with fans and directly they can interact with us. And I think that's, I don't know, I'm just very excited about that.
It shows.
I'm also excited about just the stable of, like, my sense is, my take is that Chris is being really, really careful about how he's curating the talent. And I think that's actually also pretty awesome, right? Like, it's not just throwing shit at the wall and trying to figure out what sticks. There's, like, it's just been a really amazing level up with each round. And it's, for me, like, as a fan, that's actually very exciting.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I feel like Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor were two of the very early adopters of Zestworld. I have to imagine having them on board and all into it was probably helpful in getting the rest of the stable of talent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think they were actually the very first creators that
awesome.
We did a deal with.
Right.
I mean, they were great. I reached out to Jimmy randomly on Twitter because, I mean, Jimmy's a great follow on Twitter. I mean,
Dude's hysterical.
Oh, he's
You should follow him around at Comic-Con.
Oh my God.
That's a great follow.
I have. Yeah, no.
Or not.
Right. They're both the best. And you know, and the thing is like he's an incredible writer, but he's also like a real industry mind. Like, you know, his like sort of business observations, you know, are really astute, I think, and very forward looking. And so I knew that he would get what we were doing. But you know, one of the wonderful things about Zestworld is that pretty much every single creator on the platform it's been a domino effect, and it's been referrals. And as Phil said, Alex Segura was kind enough to introduce us, and you know, Phil has even introduced us to some people, and it's just been, you know, it's a small industry, and again, like, to the point of like why we're giving everything to creators, but this is why, you know, we're going to build a really exciting roster when we treat people really well, and we know that because word spreads.
Yeah.
Phil,
It
not
does
to
make it
use
really easy to go sell him. Oh no, I was just gonna say, just to finish that off. So it's been very, very easy, particularly this last summer, but even before that, to talk to peers and be like, reach out to Chris or try to connect them, hoping that schedules and the stars will align. Because I just don't, and I swear to God, I just don't have any bad things to say. I'm not like, this is a great company, but be
give us the
careful of
dirt.
this, right?
We want the
Like,
dirt.
it's sort of like, get in touch. Right. There's just not a lot of dirt. It's just a really great space to work.
No doubt.
Phil, I did want to ask you, other than Zestworld, though, I'd be remiss not to mention that the first issue of Wonder Woman Historia was mind-blowing,
Okay.
just absolutely, stunning from front to back.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that seemed like such... Departure is the wrong word, but just such... you could tell the growth and the focus that you were putting into that issue. What was it like tackling that?
Let's see, I will try not to make it too long. I just got off a very miserable run on Superwoman.
Oh.
I thought I would never work in comics again. I was just like, okay, I'm just done. I've outgrown it. My vision and the editorial vision are too different. And then I got the then editor of Historia said, would you consider this? And the thing that sold me on it, I said no originally, I declined. And then the thing that sold me on it was working with Kelly Sue DeConnick. Because I'm like, if I'm going to go back to this material, I had to say something, right? And Kelly Sue's take was mind-blowing to me. It really was transformative.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing was, if I was going to go, I took that so I got hired when Black Label was like a thing. Mm-hmm. And before it sort of became this kind of catch-all, which is not to belittle it, but before it became Vertigo and all these other things, it was meant to be this sort of most high-end books that we had. And I took that mission very seriously. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to up the game because of who in my head I was competing with. And so that was also, and I've also said that Kelly Sue's script was probably the most inspiring script I've worked on since Grant Morrison's. It's been about 20 years since I've been that odd. So I always say that every line in that book is a tribute to her.
Oh, that's awesome.
So to her script, that would not exist without her.
I did want to ask you in particular, and then we'll get back to Zestworld in a second, but just there's so many different parts of that book that are mind-blowing, like I said, but the double-page spread that you do in there of the Greek urns floating in space, I must have stared at that for, I don't know how long, and at least part of my thought process was, how did he even do that? How did you approach that double-page spread in particular?
So that was one of the spreads that came to me instantly. Because a lot of those pages took time. That one I understood because I understood the mission statement. So Kelly Sue calls the beginning, the first several pages of the book, the compact, right, with the reader. This is my promise to you. This is what we're going to talk about. This is what it's going to be about. So I knew that. And so it was just a vision I had in my head because we were talking ultimately about crimes of history over, and how do you show that? Because history is a really long time, right? Yeah. So in my head, it wasn't just one, two, or two bases. It was thousands of bases over thousands of years, each one cataloging these crimes, these indictments. And I was pointing over here because somewhere I have that was actually penciled and inked. I did all those bases individually.
What?
Man. I started this book doing traditional pencils and then inks and then cleaning them up in Procreate. And then I just moved my pencils and just started inking in Procreate to sort of save time, which clearly I didn't. But I have the original board with all the bases because there were hundreds of them. And then I went back in and reshaped them to fit the layout that I had drawn.
Wow.
And then if you look, there are actually stories on almost every vase.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
this sort of
have a sec to grab it real quick. I'd take a look at it if that's at all possible.
Yeah, but one final note on that, and this is, but I do like to say it. So, those vases essentially showcase crimes against women.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was doing research. So I live in New York City. I can walk to the Metropolitan Museum of Art very easily. A lot of that stuff was based on stuff I found in that museum or at other museums. And it was just really interesting how what we decide is art. So a lot of these vases showcase real acts of violence against women. I mean, acts of violence generally, but like the number of pieces of art, like the Rape of Europa, isn't this beautiful? And we're not really thinking about its content so much as its aesthetic. And I think that's really fascinating. And so for me, that was eye-opening. And there's one vase, and then I will shut up, that I literally, it's almost lifted from a real vase, and it's these two creepers who are lifting up the skirt of a sleeping woman. And I redrew it, but it is almost exactly the same. And it's like a vase in a museum.
It's a real
and
thing.
Like, I'm sure a lot of us look and go like, sort of giggle, but I'm like, she's clearly asleep in the vase. And so I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And yet here it is on display as a work of art. And it just made me think about how we consume these images and this content almost subconsciously, especially if it's put in a museum or just, oh, it's beautiful, it's art.
It's revered.
No
we're meant to revere it no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, it's remarkable.
Really interesting. But all of those vases have stories.
Thank you for putting all that work into that. That's really unbelievable.
So cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that actually move back to Zestworld, but just we read a ludicrous amount of comics for the show. The fact that thank you. The fact that any page stuck with me is always remarkable to me, but this one really stuck with me in particular. The book is great. But let's get back to Zestworld for a second. Chris, we've talked about a couple of the artists and creators that are working for Zestworld. What else can you plug? What should people check out? What's maybe going under the radar a little bit under Zestworld? And if you can tease anything or talk about anything, what's coming up? Oh, you're muted.
You're on
mute.
Muted. That's
bad for an audio podcast.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, no, I would plug three things. One is just come to the site and read the comics. I mean, they're free.
Oh yeah,
and
it's free comics, man.
Yeah, and something very important here. When you subscribe to a comic on Zestworld, to receive updates, the creator actually gets your email address, and that is huge because when you think about Webtoon and the fact that there are literally, comics that tens of millions of people have read and the creator has no way of reaching those people. Like, imagine if the creator had like 10 million email addresses and they wanted to sell a piece of merch or they wanted to, hold an event. Like, it's, so that's like, like really the key thing is that when you're subscribing to these comics, you're supporting the creators in a very direct way. So that's number one. Just come, read, subscribe. The comics are amazing and they're free. And then you could, support creators with subscription tiers. The second thing is we have this awesome first of its kind commission offering. So buy a commission from someone. It's super fun. So definitely do that. And then, the third and final thing is if you're a creator watching this, listening to this, sign up for our wait list. We're working our way through it. We're doubling the creator population on the platform every month.
Wow.
So yeah, and Phil is right. It's for sure the cool kids. We're taking a really curated approach to it. Especially early on before we just open the floodgates, because we want to be really careful about the tone of our brand. And as Phil said, we want great work that has something good to say. But sign up, for our wait list because we will get to you and make sure you get on the platform.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Truly a pleasure. Good luck with everything, and looking forward to spending all of my time at Zestworld.
Yeah, Zestworld.
Yeah, let's get zesty.
It's great. It's a really terrific platform. Really
awesome. Chris, Phil, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a lovely night.
Take care.
Take care.
All right. There we go. Once again, zestworld.com. And of course, around the Zestworld, the signature drink of Zestworld. They accepted it, right?
They
said
into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Definitely check that out. And guess what's up, Pete?
I just wanted to say, like, not to sound like complete chills or something, but like we read a ton of comics online, and it was just so refreshing how easy it was to not only like look through Hypno Slip. It was so clear, and you didn't have to do any kind of like extra stuff, and it was just like such a seamless experience. And I'm geeking out because it's normally a nightmare, and I'm in shock and awe of how nice it is and how easy it is to support things that you love. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we support another thing we love and bring our next guest into the stream, one of our favorite guys to chat to, and he has a huge announcement that came out today. Matthew Rosenberg, everybody, hello.
I love being one of your favorite things.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we talk about one of your comics, very often Pete shouts Bergie. I can't believe he didn't do it just now, and I'm so sorry that he does that. Or you're welcome.
I'm trying to be respectful.
I feel disrespectful to not shout it at this point. I think the tabletop turn. There you go. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
It'd be weird if you shouted it.
Yeah, I can't do that. That's not really. It's a gross look. It looks. It's yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on. So excited to have you here, and particularly excited because you had a huge announcement today. You are, how are we describing it? You're launching kind of like your own publishing imprint, would you say?
We didn't quite figure that out. We don't have to talk more. I started writing a post explaining what I'm doing, and then I was like, I don't really know how to describe this, so we're just going to kind of cruise past it. But I'm making a bunch of books with a bunch of my favorite creators. And we're going to be disseminating them and creating them in our email newsletter. So it's very similar to what the Zestworld guys were talking about. We are on Substack, which is another platform doing the same thing. But it's really exciting to listen to them talk about sort of the idea of giving creators power, because that's what all of us are trying to do, is figure out like, well, how can we make exactly the things we want with no barriers and no obstacles, and it's really fun. And like, whether you're talking, listening to Phil Jimenez talk about his book, and that's such an honor to even get to hear him talk about it, because he's such a legend, and all the people there, all the amazing creators on Substack, it's really a fun time to be doing this kind of thing. So I kind of dove in 2 feet at a time, and we're making a thing, and it's
That's the most amount of feet. That's max.
Yeah, that's all the feet I have. So I don't really. I was
max feet.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine, and this is not to put you on the spot about this, but I imagine this sort of thing is probably a little scary as well, because you're going from a publisher like an Image Comics, even, which, granted, Image Comics is, some people sometimes refer to it as a printing press, but like a Marvel or a DC, where there's all this infrastructure in place to kind of help you out, to doing it yourself. So what is that like, and what led to that decision?
Yeah, I feel like all the good risks worth taking are sort of scary and rewarding at the same time. And so this was kind of that. It's there wasn't a way for us to just go to a publisher and be like, we have 5 or 6 books we want to make. Like, will you do that? There wasn't an easy way to do that. There are ways to do it, but this seemed like the sort of, well, no one can tell us no version of that. And so that was our impetus, and that was sort of our goal, and just getting a chance to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's really terrifying. And luckily I hired a bunch of my friends who are very good at their jobs. So we have Rachel Pinellas, who was a Marvel and DC editor, and she's our managing editor, and Tyler Boss, who draws What's the Furthest Place From Here, our Image book, and we made 4 Kids Walking a Bank together. He's doing all the graphic design, and then we have a ton of other people doing a ton of other things, and then it's just us and all the artists and writing and all that, just trying to make books and get them out to people with no barrier.
Sorry, we were just scanning through the site,
Yes.
and it's awesome. So I was definitely listening, but I was mostly taking in that
You don't have
art,
to
which is like, what a great. And let's just say, like, I feel like you're having such a strong moment right now. It's almost a Burgessance, if I can throw out a second.
Yeah.
Between what's the Furthest Place From Here, DC versus Vampires, a book that we talk about in such hype fashion and that we love.
Thanks,
and of
guys.
course, Wildcats coming up. Like,
It's
great
been
time. How busy are you right now?
Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure to watch you come into power here. You are killing the game. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, how busy am I? I just took a nap right before the show.
Perfect timing.
So,
Perfect
we're good.
time. We
Okay.
asked a
3 hour
lot
nap.
of our guests to nap right before the cameras.
Yeah, I wanted to be energized. No, I'm busy. It's a lot of work, but it is, when I was a kid, my dad was a writer, and he used to work all the time. And I said to him once, like, "Oh, you're going to be working while we're on vacation?" And he said to me a phrase that is sort of haunting to say to a child, and now it haunts me as an adult, and I find myself repeating it. He was like, "Well, it's better to have too much work than too little." So that's sort of
Wow.
Terrifying. I'm right there.
terrifying thing to.
How old were
terrifying
you
thing
when
to-
he said that to you?
I was like
Yeah.
11.
That's so weird,
Great to
not to
get your
interrupt
choice,
you, but I had a very similar experience where I said the same thing to my dad, and he was like, "I'm not your dad."
Yeah.
Whoa, interesting response.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's basically the same anecdote.
Yeah.
Right,
on the other
exactly.
side, yeah.
I'm your work.
So yeah, no, I'm keeping busy, and I'm really happy that I get to do all this stuff, and it's a real honor, but mostly I just like, it doesn't really feel, this is a stupid answer because I work like 17 and 18-hour days 7 days a week, but it doesn't really feel like work a lot of the time because
That's awesome.
I really do, whether I'm making What's the First Place From Here or all these books that we're making at ashcanpress.com, or I'm making DC vs. Vampires and Wildcats and Joker at DC, and those are like dream books for me. So I just kind of feel really lucky all the time, and I don't really notice the work as much.
Wow.
I mean, I understand that it's not exactly a Substack thing, but at the same time, it is existing at the platform. So what are the advantages of launching specifically on there from a technical perspective?
Well, it is exactly a Substack thing.
Yeah.
But the technical advantages are that you can really do whatever you want. There are no rules. So we're trying a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's interesting because we have basically, you can go to ashcanpress.com, which redirects you to Substack, and you sign up for our newsletter. And if you don't want to give us any money, which is totally cool, you get a newsletter every week where we talk about comics and we talk about chocolate milk and dumb stuff and whatever I feel like talking about. And it's people seem to like it. Sometimes I'm curious why, but they do. And then and then there's what the stuff we launched today was the paid tiers, which is announcing these books with my collaborators. And so there's a monthly tier where you're going to get PDFs of books every month emailed to you, and there's a bunch of different formats. So if you have a reader, they have the Panels app on Substack. A lot of people use that, and you can drop the comics in there. You can do that monthly. There's a discount if you do it yearly. And then there's like a more expensive tier that gets you a bunch of like funny physical stuff and variant covers and prints and signed scripts. And, but really the thing I'm excited about is that we're just getting a chance to sort of show people how we're making these books if they care. And you don't have to, I'm a big nerd for process, and I'm a big nerd for like the behind the scenes. And I always watched my DVDs with director's commentary, but I know everyone's not that. So like, if you want to just read comics, we're going to make comics and send them to you. If you want to like see character sketches and see discussions between all of us on how these books are being formed, and see script samples and coloring process and all that, we're going to show you that. And one of the things I'm excited about is like, we're going to show the pitch for What's the Furthest Place From Here, and me and Tyler are going to have a discussion on it. And like, it's got a bunch of pages that aren't actually in the book. Like, we pitched stuff that we ended up cutting, and there's a lot of stuff like that is just, you just get the opportunity to do, which we couldn't if it was just a comic in a shop. And I love comics in shops, and we're not forsaking that. That is a huge priority in what we're making and what we're doing. But we're taking advantage of the chance to just be in people's inboxes and give them stuff. We're going to make a podcast.
Oh, wow.
You guys
What?
inspired me. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I felt as soon as it came out of my
Eating
mouth,
our
I was like,
lunch
oh,
here.
Oh man.
Jeez.
Well, if it makes you feel
We're
better,
the only podcast on the internet, right?
I know. If it
On
makes
the
you feel
internet.
better, I'm very. We taped the podcast, and I'm definitely very bad at it. Like I'm 100%.
I don't believe
it.
that. You've
what
been
a
a
relief.
fun guest every time you've been on.
You know, you guys are like shepherds, and you steer things, and like the sheep can't steer the herd well. It's just you know, I have experience on this now. I did it. I was like, that's really hard. This is really awkward, and it's gonna suck. But it's free, so whatever. Sign up, and you'll get a podcast.
It's free. It's free. So yeah.
And one thing to throw out there, you know, it isn't like you doing literally absolutely everything about it. You also have Rachel Pinellas. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing her name, but she's doing a bunch of editorial stuff as well, right?
Yeah, Rachel is editing books, and she's a you know, we had a long talk about like, well, what's your title going to be? Because she was like, well, I'm just going to help you. And I was like, you should have a title, right? And you know, she was like, well, I'm not the editor in chief, right? And I was like, we're not a publisher, so we shouldn't have that. So we settled on managing editor. So she's just making sure that the ship runs on time and everybody has what they need to make these books, but also is creatively chiming in. And and then you know, we're just making there's 6 projects that are going up there. We haven't said what the names of them are. There's just a teaser image for each one. We want to roll them out like they're actual books and announce them and have you get excited in a window that makes sense. I mean, some of them are a year's off, you know, like at least. So it's a long project, and we really want to work in it. But I'm working with 6 of my favorite artists in comics. So it's Tyler Boss, who I mentioned before, who is, you know, my creative partner in so much that I do, and sort of he's my muse, and he kind of hates me, so it's like this beautiful relationship. And then it's beautiful. And then Josh Hickson, who I worked with him on Joker Puzzle Box, and he just did the 7th issue of What's the First Place From Here. He's going to do a book that me and Tyler are co-writing, and he's going to draw it.
Oh, wow.
And then Stefano Landini, who's currently doing issues of Black Panther, but we worked together on Punisher for a little bit, and he's just a genius, and he's, you know, we've already got issues done of that, and it's a beautiful book, and I think he's just an underrated talent. Andy McDonald, who I did Multiple Man with, but he just did a run on Wonder Woman, and is always busy, and he's just a sort of, you know, a true force in comics. He's and one of the best people I know. And then we have Juan Ferreira, who I did Thunderbolts with, and he just did a Flash book, and he's doing some Spider-Man stuff, and we're doing a World War II thing, which I'm excited for. Oh. And then we have Javier Rodriguez, who's currently doing Defenders, and I think is a talent, that a once in a generation talent in comics. And I've never worked with him before, and we're like just exchanging these frantic emails about how excited we are. And so all, you know, like everybody whipped together cool teasers and things and put them up, and we're all just like brewing comics, and we're inviting people to come along and hang out while we do it. It's kind of a weird vibe, but I like that about it. I feel like, you know, not to get too pretentious, but I sort of feel like there's a time of you know, there's a creative freedom that you have here that harkens back to, like, you know, whether it's various communities that are making art, and we want to be that. We want to be part of a thing where we're like, you can come and hang out and watch us make this stuff. You can come talk to us about it, like ask questions, be part of it. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, that's exciting.
For sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned brewing comics. We have a comment from our CBC chef, Brett Macris, pitching a cocktail called What's the Furthest Place From Beer?
Is that a cocktail, or is that just beer?
I think it's a cocktail that's far away from beer.
Far
it's
from
the
beer.
furthest place.
Right.
I will say,
or it could just be like a beer that's across the room.
Yeah, it's like an actual beer that's far away.
That beer.
I will say, when you guys talked about the Zestworld thing, I'm straight edge, so I don't drink. But a virgin Zestworld sounded really good to me. I was like, I would drink that.
Yeah.
That might just be juice.
I think it is.
It's juice with honey.
Yeah.
Most cocktails without alcohol are just juice.
Yeah,
Or just
love it.
air and ice, really.
Yeah, love it.
Now, even though you are launching 6 different comics over an indeterminate period, are you at this point still planning on doing Marvel stuff, DC stuff as well, or are you devoting yourself to this full time?
Oh yeah. I am doing Joker launches next month, issue 1.
And wait.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the craziest book I've ever written. It's the weirdest.
What?
Yeah, it's definitely one. I was like, I don't know if they're going to let me do this plot, and 2, I was like, they're definitely not going to let me make it this violent, and it is. They were very excited about both at DC. Ben Abernathy, my editor, is one of the best to ever do it, and he is just a champion of trying to make cool books. So, it's me, Carmine Di Giandomenico, and Francesco Francavilla doing Joker stories.
And this is a pseudo sequel to the Joker series that came before, which was kind of more of a Commissioner Gordon series.
Yes.
So is this going to be about like a barista who works somewhere in Gotham and the Joker passes through to get coffee sometimes? No, sorry.
He's a barista, but he has hobbies. So like, he's not just a barista. That's really ridiculous. It's funny because people are like, well, the other Joker book, there's James Tynan's book with Guillaume March and a bunch of great people. Yeah. Like I actually ended up writing 4 issues of that run.
I was gonna say you worked on that.
Yeah, I worked on it, and so it's I have a huge love for that book and what it is, and I always appreciated the ability to make a stealth Commissioner Gordon book because Commissioner Gordon's the best. We're not doing that. Someone asked me yesterday, like on Twitter, they were like, "Oh, is Commissioner Gordon going to be the main character?" And I was like, "No, he's not in the book." And then I had misread their tone, and they were like, "Oh, that's disappointing." And I was like, "Oops, misread that."
No sarcasm there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I gave you a real sourpuss on that when I read it in my head, and you were very excited to get more Commissioner Gordon comics, as you should be, because that book is great.
Speaking of your social media presence, I feel like you're really going full on in your Wildcats energy here.
It's Wildcats. I mean, it's
for the grifter love is strong.
Come on, for people of a certain age, grifter. The Wildcats is like the book when you were a kid that you just didn't know books could be that cool. You were like, I didn't know. You knew comics were cool, and then you were like, wait, there's another level of cool to these. And I mean, I just love those characters, and I love them. And Grifter, it has the most iconic mask of the last 40 years of comics, and so it's super easy to take his mask and put it on people's faces and make memes, and people like that. And I'm like, that takes me 4 seconds, and that's marketing. Here we go. So
that's marketing. I mean, it's crazy with Grifter. I feel like back in the day when Image launched, it was like, how are we going to make our Wolverine? And they did it. And
it's funny because like when you look at the Wildcats and the Wildstorm universe, there are a lot of other characters that are also like real Wolverine-y, and you're like, you guys were like, can we just make Wolverine? And they were like, no, you just need to make a guy who's definitely like kind of a drunk mess disaster and maybe not a great guy. And that's what Grifter is, and I love him for that, and he's just the most fun. But that book launches in November. Wildcats #1. Me and Steven Segovia. It's wild. Not to
it's covert. It's action. It's teams.
Maybe it's possible that the acronym stands for a different thing now. Look at that.
I love that because let me be honest, that was the least fun part of the original.
I think covert action teams is great. It's the S that really trips you up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that
loose.
is.
The S is loose. It flies. So you got an S.
Justin,
You're bringing us an S.
Oh, there's an S. I mean, it's squad, so it's not like that much.
Swap, covert action team, squad.
Yeah.
Suave.
But it's
Justin.
I'm really excited about that.
Justin mentioned DC versus Vampires, which we've been talking about nonstop as well, pretty much every issue. It feels like sort of like this niche world in DC where it's like we got the DC universe and something really messed up happens in the DC universe and takes it down a path. When you're doing something like that, how far are you allowed to take it? It seems like already pretty far, right?
I mean, we put one of the Wonder Twins in a blender and had someone drink them.
You sure did.
Pretty far.
You sure did.
I mean, it's always a fun challenge to kind of test that. And like there are definite places where, like I said before, it's Ben Abernathy editing that book as well, and there's nothing I can send Ben, but like I text him late at night, be like, can I do this? And he'll send me back like, I don't know, let's fucking find out. Like the enthusiasm for just like, what can we do to these characters? And I'm really impressed because I feel like, and this is sort of a cultural difference between Marvel and DC. I feel like Marvel fans, and I'm obviously a fan of both and have made stuff with both, Marvel fans don't quite connect to the Elseworld, to the what ifs the same way DC fans connect to Elseworlds. And I have people with Batman as their screen name and avatar on Twitter, and we ripped Batman's heart out of his back and then hung him from an arch and had people just laughing at his corpse. And those people are like, I love it. I love to see that. And that's something that is really fun. Like, I think people understand the spirit of the Elseworlds is like, we love and respect the continuity, and that's why we're doing this. We want to explore it and poke at it from different places. And people have been really great. And the enthusiasm for that book just is always overwhelming. And we have sort of the biggest, craziest stuff coming in it. I think the thing I wrote in issue 11, when I sent the script to James Tynion, who he plots the book and I write it, and we sort of plot it together. But when I sent it to him, when I told him about it, he was like, I don't think anyone's ever done that before. And I was like, yeah, I just thought of it. And he was like, that's either amazing or real stupid. Like, I'm so excited to find out what. And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
That's the best kind of thing.
I feel like you snuck one in. It felt like maybe like a small event, but to me, it feels like the crossover that is so energizing and for all the characters, and yet you still find the moments of heart in it. Like it was the last issue where Alfred is talking about how he murdered.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was so messed up.
Yeah, there's I think what matters, like, it's very easy to sort of just turn the gore to 11 and just be like, they're monsters, and who's your favorite character? We're gonna tear them in half. Like, that's super easy and fun sometimes. Like, I'm not gonna deny that, like, we ripped Superboy in half, like we did, and it was fun. And I love Superboy so much, but sometimes you want to see what happens when you rip him in half. And but I think the thing that I read a lot of Elseworld stuff. I always have. I love Elseworld stuff. And the thing that always works is finding the things that make them universal, make these characters universal, no matter where they are in the multiverse. And that's always the heart and the core of the characters. And like, you can twist it for some and break some, but you need to have that connective tissue. And so for me, people like Alfred and, Batgirl, and there's all Green Arrow, Black Canary, John Constantine. Like, we're sort of pushing John Constantine really hard, and you want to see John Constantine just be kind of breaking and at his breaking point. Like, that's where he's at his best. And I was like, that feels relatable, but we're doing it in a new way here. And there's a ton of that. And we're trying to put characters who don't normally get the spotlight and be like, we love Steel. Like, Steel matters here. This is Steel and Supergirl sailing around the world together. And that was unintentional and kind of tasteless, but it's great.
The Green Lantern or the Green Arrow, Black Canary stuff is like some of the best romantic scenes I've seen in so long.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I love those characters and getting a chance to do it, and it's possible where there's going to be some fun Green Arrow team ups with some guys coming up who have very cool masks that are easy to make memes out of, and I'm excited about that. That's a little scoop for you guys. Yeah, and there's just a bunch, unless that issue came out and I missed it. But no, I don't think that. I think that's on the next issue. There's exactly that. We're trying to make things that have those moments of heart and passion, and Barbara Gordon's love for Nightwing and for Dick Grayson is going to be a real thing coming up, and we're really going to slam into that really hard, and that's that stuff's hard to write because it's emotional and intense, and you want to do justice to these characters, and that's what we're trying to do here. And so I'm glad that it connects with you guys. That is means a lot to me.
Another one, you mentioned it a couple of times, but what's the furthest place from here, which is so awesome. I think I think the last time we had you on, you were just launching or just about to launch the book. And one of the things that really stuck with me as we reviewed every issue of it is you talked about how you're kind of starting small and slowly, like an onion, expanding the world and going outward. We're now at the point where the world has expanded pretty exponentially. We're starting to get backstory. At this point, how much bigger does it have to go?
It goes a lot bigger. We have a lot mapped out. Issue 7, like I said, Josh Hickson, who's doing a book over at ashcanpress.com with me and Tyler, he drew issue 7. Issue 7, 8, and 9 are flashback issues with guest artists. So issue 8 is Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, and issue 9 is Sweeney Boo. And then Tyler comes back for issue 10, and we sort of reinvent everything you know. And you're going to see some stuff you've never seen before. And it's all driving to this place that is very different. And sort of the idea is that every arc of the book should feel really different. And it's funny, I don't know if I should talk about this, but I don't care. We had a bunch of meetings with like TV, film people about the book, and we kind of were very protective of it because issue 1 doesn't tell you what it is. And so we were like, we don't want people to buy this and then be like, oh, I didn't know that's what it was. And I have it for 2 years and I don't know how to make that. So we kind of we had a lot of people reach out and inquire about it. And we were like, it's not for option. Like, we're holding on to it. And now we're at a place where we have enough story and we have enough road that we were like, okay, let's take meetings. And we had meetings, and we had a meeting with a great film company, and, you know, no slight against them. They were like, this is huge. Like, is this it? And we were like, no, it's going to go to here and here and here. And we just watched the executives be like, as we were like, at a certain point, I was like, look, we didn't set out to make this filmable. We set out to make a comic. So sorry. And like, they definitely were a little bit like, you could see the price tag spinning in their head. They were like, $100 million movie, $200 million movie, $400 million, to the point where they were like, this is insane.
You got to scare those folks. Sometimes you got to give them something to think about when they're going to sleep at night.
I think if you're not scaring film executives, like, what are you doing? What's the point?
Yeah.
This is, I mean, I'll also throw out to you, this is one of those books, particularly because you got the Tyler Boss art, that it's like, as much as I would love for you guys to get that Hollywood money, I want to see it animated, if anything. Like, I want to see it with Tyler Boss's look, with that specific layout that you have. I love the fact that you're talking about that, of course you are, but aiming for a comic book first, because I think that's what makes the book work. Like, it is something that right now could only inherently work as a comic book and a story. And eventually, again, I hope you get that bag, but I'm really enjoying what it is right now.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think what Tyler brings is so, I mean, he, you know, like I used to be like, you know, a lot of times people, some casual fans of comics especially, like, tend to be reductive to artists. They tend to think of story first. And I used to say on Four Kids Walking on a Bank, I'd be like, it's as much Tyler as me. And on What's the First Place From Here, I was kind of like, it's not. It's more Tyler than me. This book is kind of 70 Tyler, 30% me. And like, I write every issue, and you know, when we build it together, I for every arc, I go up to his house. He lives in Buffalo. He used to live in Brooklyn, so it was a lot easier. But now he lives in Buffalo, and I go up to his house for a week, and we just go Bills. And we used to for Tyler's 30th birthday, I got him the most expensive Bills tickets I could get him. I don't know anything about football, but he loves the Bills, and I was like, I love this dude. We're partners, and I want to get him this thing. And I got him the most expensive tickets. And he was like, afterwards, he was like so appreciative, and he's like, it was so sweet of you. And he's like, the $20 tickets are kind of more fun. And I was like, well, I mean,
if you don't know,
I was like, that was a good used car I spent. It wasn't that much, but it was a lot. And but yeah, I mean, I think the world and you know, we have the first volume out now, so people are discovering it again. And the first volume is 270 pages. We wanted to give you a lot of world to digest, and people are just discovering it for the first time, and it's so exciting because it's something where I think, like you said, we set out to do something you could only do in comics, and it's really fun to have that experience and have people come across something that is such a like for me and Tyler, I mean, maybe it doesn't read that way for other people, but for us, it's a love letter to everything we love about comics and everything that is inherently comics. And so having other people feel that and react to that is like, you know, it's made it the most proud of anything I've ever worked on is that book.
Yeah. And
It's
it comes across that
phenomenal.
way. It feels, it's like music, it's like flavor, or like it's hard to describe, and I think that's why it really hits a mark in me as a comic book reader, where it's like it's distinct in a way that is just hard to quantify.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that, like, we set out to value atmosphere. We set out to value mood. And, like, we were like, this isn't, for me, like, you know, I spent 5 years at Marvel and been at DC for the last couple. And, like, you got 20 pages, you got 22 pages. Like, the first thing when you run out of space you cut is mood and atmosphere. Like, if you have too much plot, if you need a fighting, you need plot, you need character, mood and atmosphere are the thing that goes. And, like, anytime you read a great moody comic, like you read, you know, like Long Halloween or whatever, and you're just like, man, this is a masterclass in building atmosphere. How do they do this? And so we're not that good as those guys. So what we do is add a lot of pages. We're like, well, in a 20-page comic, this would just be plot. So this is a 40-page comic, and it feels different than other stuff. And that, I think, when you talk about it being sort of musical and that, and like, that's how I sort of connect to it, is that it's we're making something that is lyrical and you know, infused with atmosphere in a way that is hard to do. And
it's cliche or sort of shitty to say it's a vibe, but this book is a vibe. Like, most people say that and mean something, or it's like, that's not a vibe, that's a movie you saw. This is like a distinct vibe that just you don't have.
I'm gonna I won't name names, but there's another a prominent comics podcast, I won't name names, that I love.
Better be another one we do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna name names. They're your names, but no, there's another comics podcast where one of the hosts likes the book and one of them doesn't, and they talk about it a lot. And I really like, and I sent them a note being like, I really love that like you guys don't see eye to eye, because I'm making something, me and Tyler are making something that feels very personal to us and very intimate, and like it's about comics and it's about all these things, but it's about the comics we love, and that isn't universal. And there's something sort of rewarding about finding two people where it connects with one and not the other. That is, like, I know this sounds obnoxious, but there's something really gratifying to be like, that actually validates that this is personal and
it's a choice. You like made a choice. Like, we don't ever disagree about anything, so I wouldn't even know what that's like. But yeah, like the fact that you made a choice means that someone isn't going to like that choice, and that in itself is also hard.
Yeah, they were like, you know, sort of apologetic when I was like, oh, he doesn't like it, and they were like, oh no, and I was like, no, it's fine. Like, it's not for everyone. Like, we don't, you know, like, there are very few things in the world that are for everyone and also good. Like, things that are for everyone are fine. There are things that are great and they're for some people, and there are things that try to get everybody. And there's exceptions. Like, you know, I like Star Wars a lot. Pretty much everybody likes Star Wars a lot. Yeah. And I know not everybody, but like most people, it's an exceptional thing. But most of the time when someone's like, I want everybody to like this, you're like, kind of, everybody may like it, but no one's going to love it. And that
some people are making pizza and you're making haggis.
Yeah, really a nightmare statement. The most insulting thing I've ever heard.
This is for the comments here.
Slap him in the face while he's on our podcast. Thank you so much, Justin.
Michael Tillman says, Tom Hanks say something bad. Is that asking us to say something bad about Tom Hanks? The accents he's been doing in his last couple of movies have been very weird.
Wow.
I don't think that's a bad thing to say that, though. I think that's weird. I mean, like, I'm a huge Mira Sorvino fan, and that's all she does is accents that you're like, this isn't tied to anything.
This isn't good. Yeah.
I don't have anything bad to say about Tom Hanks. I will say that the new season of Atlanta, which was one of the best things ever on TV.
Oh my God!
The Chet Hanks cameo is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
I mean, it's up there.
Talk about something that is sort of like atmospheric and tonal that just a lot of people didn't like.
Oh, yeah.
The new season of Atlanta is that for sure. But yes, Chet Hanks. Great.
Chet Hanks. If you haven't seen, find out the episode that Chet Hanks is in. It's a standalone episode, and it is like, I don't know why they thought it was a good idea. I don't know why Chet Hanks thought it was a good idea, And because of that, it's a great idea. It's
exactly.
Really,
two bad ideas sometimes make a good idea.
Yeah, it's really problematic and screwed up. And that's not a bad thing about Tom Hanks, except, that's his kid making bad ideas, I guess. But
I would say hard to say something bad about Tom Hanks. Easy to say something bad about Chet Hanks.
Well, Atlanta was great. I don't know. Love it.
Yeah, great.
That's why you brought me on here, guys, to talk about Atlanta.
Exactly.
Absolutely. This is our Atlanta podcast. This is Atlanta Book Club. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to go to our sponsor now. Thank you so much for coming on. You've talked about so many things, so I hesitate to ask what else are you working on, but what else do you want to plug before we let you go?
I'll be honest, that nap I had was awesome.
You're plugging naps?
I'm plugging naps. Guys,
check them out. Check them out.
If you're not into naps, get into naps. Check out ashcanpress.com. That's the home of a ton of my time and energy, but it's also the home of some of the best artists in comics working. First volume of What's the Furthest Place From Here is in comic shops now, and Joker starts in October, Wildcat starts in November, DC versus Vampires keeps going and going, and the collection of that. I have a Joker book out today, Joker Puzzle Box, which is a super strange book, but is very fun, and it's a weird murder mystery from where the Joker is your narrator and is just lying the whole time, so it's funny. Nice. Yeah, a lot of stuff. I don't know. Google me.
The ultimate.
Google me.
I don't know. Google me. Hey,
there we
Google
go.
Me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Congratulations on Ashcan Press, and I'm looking forward to reading every single one of those books.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bergie.
There we go. Bergie. Matthew Rosenberg. Check out ashcanpress.com for so much. And folks, we are going to move to our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It's your audience questions. And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question and ask a question over on Crowdcast or something in the comments over on YouTube. But we got one. This is a little bit of a swerve. We got one here from the show. Pete has a question. Pete, what's going on?
I want to hear about you going to New Orleans and to one of the greatest restaurants and what that experience was like. But first, we should talk about our drinks because it looks like either you shrunk or you have a giant beer. I don't know what's going on.
No, I got tinier in New Orleans. I ate too much salt, beautiful tasting food that was well seasoned.
That's on the license plate, right? Get tiny in New Orleans.
Yeah, get little. This is I'm drinking a hazy IPA from my farm share. They make beer there. The Garden of Eve farm share. They deliver vegetables and sometimes beer. And I'll tell you what, it's a giant can.
Okay, good. And I'm not losing my mind. It is a giant can. Okay.
Always good when you can compliment the can and nothing else. What are you drinking, Pete?
I'm drinking a Baltimore Special here. This is a Zadies, a lager.
Wow, I've never heard of that. And
it's Baltimore Special.
Wow.
Nice. I've switched from the special drink of the night to straight bourbon.
Oh, just straight bullet, bro. Bullet to the head.
Keep going, man.
This is what happens when we have long, fun interviews. It's great.
All right.
Wait. To answer Pete's
question.
Oh,
yes. Okay, wait. While you answer the question, I'm going to plug in my laptop because I forgot to do that, but go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Stray Bullet says, "Oh, God, invite me in for this." So we should do that when Alex gets back because Alex retains that power.
He does. He does.
I'll just
look
set
at
it
those
up.
Names behind him there. He's got an old school clock, it looks like, too.
Yeah, this is Alex is in the year 1830 right now. That's why he's in a new location. But I was down in New Orleans for work, shooting a commercial, and Stray Bullet, Brett Macris, lives and works in New Orleans.
Yeah, and, an amazing restaurant.
Alex, invite Stray in for this conversation because
sure.
So we had a plan. Stray and I had a plan of I was going to finish up shooting and come to his house to do the show from his living room, and he was going to make an elaborate tasting menu over the course of it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Brett, welcome to the stream. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
I worked too late. I'll let Brett take over from here.
So he did. So the plan was like it was going to be this you guys would be doing the show, and I would just be randomly bringing him courses. Like it was a 6-course tasting menu.
It's gonna be so
And, like, he would just be like during the show talking to the guests, and I would just like drop a plate, this like really elegant meal through the whole show. But it was
How could
fine.
you be late for that?
Well, I mean,
I was working on the other side of the lake.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
He didn't even get it to the house until like 8:00.
Wow.
But I was like, well, fuck it. I have all this food. Like, it's all ready to go. So I was like, well, either way, we're going to have a decent night, whether he's on the show doing it or... So we did. We had a pretty decent night. I got to cook food, and it was fun.
But what was it like when you went to his restaurant, though? Like, what was that
This
like?
was the
restaurant.
experience. The restaurant was great also. Was a signature experience in my life. It was so good. I was in his living room. His son's playing behind me and hanging out. Like, we had a blast. I made a cocktail but didn't take the mint out and really embarrassed myself. But,
That was fine. We made the cocktail of the day, and then we had Boulevardiers. And then we sat on my porch and drank Fernet. It was great.
What a nice night.
It was so good.
Like I said in the Slack, I'm sorry that you just had to be friends instead of doing a bit. That's a real bummer.
I know. Someday we'll have a relationship, Alex.
Yes.
I mean, he landed, like, your timing for the week was perfect because I had, like, a whole lamb I had been dry aging upstairs in the restaurant for, like, a month. And then I had just gotten in, like, a 27-pound cobia. And I had black truffles. And I had black garlic. And, like, I had...
Yeah,
all
tell
this
us
stuff
some of the dishes you
just
had.
at my fingers. So like, and at like a 28-day aged ribeye, I had all these things that he just happened to like fall perfectly on. So I could make a decent meal out of it. Yeah.
Just lucky, I guess. It was not just a decent meal; it was an epic meal that I had sitting at his bar. And then. Like 3 days later, I went to his restaurant. Our wardrobe person on the shoot also, her sister dates
my sous chef.
Yeah, total coincidence. So we all came for dinner, and they set us up again with an epic meal.
Oh yeah,
I had
of course.
A piece of steak that I later wore as a crown.
The lamb, yeah,
a lamb.
I was broke down the lamb that day, and I had. You know, like a crown roast, if you've ever seen one. It's like half the side of the ribs with the bones and the thing. But instead, I had the cross section. So there was like the loin in the middle with the bones sticking out. So it looked like, you know, a weird tiara. So when I put it down, I was like, this is the lamb tiara. You have to wear it when you're done.
Wow.
I was
you
really
did.
I actually did do it. Brett had to leave, but I did wear it eventually.
I know. Like, and honestly, when his trip realized how like old I am now, like we're old because like I had to leave halfway through his meal at the dinner to go take care of my son, and I was like, sorry man, I can't go out tonight. Whereas like you'd hit me up like 4 years ago, I would have been like, no, we're fucking go. We're gonna go to Bourbon Street for one drink, then we're gonna Royal, and we're gonna go to our bar, and then we're gonna tear it up. I hope you don't have to work tomorrow. Oh, you do? That's too bad. We're gonna keep going. Like,
nice.
You'll get over it. And, yeah, but
I will say every day I had to work there, I was up at 4:30 in the morning. So it would have devastated my old ass as well.
Oh my god!
Plus,
I heard
you stay. Yeah, go ahead, Beat.
I heard the maitre d' called you a line producer.
Oh,
yeah, this motherfucker set it up so when I walked up, they were like, "Ooh, Mr. Big Time Line Producer here." And I was
so there's more to it. There's more to it too. So you at some point have made a reservation with Resi.
100%.
Because you were already in our system.
Yes.
So I put in your notes when he arrives, say, hey, are you that big time line producer? So now everywhere you go and you make a reservation on Resi, the fucking hostess is going to, or the host is going to ask you if you're that big time line producer.
Can't wait for that, which is how most reservations are made these days. So perfect.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah.
It's great.
There you go. At least they're recognizing your job, Justin. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
Not
Brett.
my job.
Brett, thank you so much for coming in.
Sure.
Thank you for treating Justin to a good dinner. He's been eating crackers and stale water the entire time. So
trying to recapture that taste, that flavor.
Yeah.
So good. When
I'm
you're down
on,
in New Orleans, go to Kushan. Get there.
Wait, what are you
I'm
drinking?
on drink one too many of tonight's around the Zestworld. So
It's really good. I will just
Yeah.
mention, just to get back to it while you're on. So I mentioned to you on the Slack, but I made one for myself, made one for my wife, also made 2 for my neighbors, including one of my neighbors loves honey and bourbon, so she was very excited. But both of them individually came over to be like, that drink was amazing. So there you go.
that's awesome.
All right.
So
I
thank
did
you
have
very
that
much.
fear. I'm glad I didn't go with the Matthew Rosenberg one because for a second there I had that fear. Like, what if Phil Jimenez is like sober? This might backfire on
Nope.
me.
But Matthew Rosenberg was, so there you go. We all
Right.
works out.
Great, Ed, Ben.
All right, Brett, nice
Thanks,
chatting.
guys.
Have a good night.
Oh man, that's great stuff.
All right, let's get to some questions here. The first one's from Stray Bullet. Why don't we go to somebody else for a second? This is from Kevin, following up on the monster discussion and this week's news. What are some of your fave monster-based comics? Which ones would you love to see get adapted? Of course, Kevin is talking about Werewolf by Night. The trailer for it was released at D23.
It's based on a comic book, by the way.
Oh boy. If you subscribe to our Marvel Vision podcast, we did a breakdown of D23 of the Marvel panel and talked all about that, so check that out. But what do you guys think? What are some of your favorite monster books?
Well, let's DC versus Vampires has been
Hell yeah.
fave, so that's right in the top of mind.
Marvel Zombies.
Marvel Zombies, getting that. I think trying to think of the Frankenstein keeps popping up in the DC universe, a rare version of a monster character that sort of fits in with the other the ways the teams that Frankenstein gets put on in the DC universe. So I'm here for that.
I'll also throw out, while we're talking about Frankenstein, I'm blanking on the exact name of the book, but Mike Mignola just released his version of Frankenstein.
Oh, it's wild.
Catching back up with it in the Mignolaverse, or whatever we call it, the Hellboy universe. Very cool. Great book from Dark Horse. Definitely check that out.
It's set in like a post-apocalyptic world where Frankenstein is like a prophet sitting like Buddha for a long time. It's wild.
Yeah, so cool. All right, good question there. Why don't we go to another one? This is from Josh H. It is the 30th anniversary of the debut of Harley Quinn in Batman the Animated Series. Who is your favorite comics character that has been created in the last 30 years?
Wow, last 30 years.
Yes.
That takes us back
boy.
to 92.
Great. When, real quick, when did Maggot debut in X-Men? Do you guys remember?
I think that was in the window, probably like 94.
Great.
I want to
Maggot,
say.
man.
Early,
Let's go with Maggot.
Maggot,
early
man.
90s, yeah.
Love Maggot, man. Let me throw it out to Starman, which I think is in that window, and just talk about building a mythology, one of my faves. A quick shout out to Have You Nerd. Let's not forget Best Frankenstein, Frankencastle. Thank you for picking up.
I mean,
Where
I was
we-
hoping we could maybe lightly touch on Frankenstein and not bring up Frankencastle one time, maybe just once.
I mean, to get back to the last question, that was a pretty good arc with some monsters where Frankencastle went to live with
No,
a
it
bunch of
was not.
monsters
Yes.
No, it
underneath
was
New York
not.
City.
No, it was
Super
not.
fun.
Frankencastle is the doctor, I think, Alex. Is
As we
my-
previously established, all of us all agree on everything all the time, unlike certain comic book podcasts. So,
Yeah.
Justin, you like Frankencastle? I like Frankencastle. We all like Frankencastle.
new characters though in the last 30 years.
Murder
Yes.
Falcon.
Nice.
Great. Frankencastle.
Nope.
Created a whole cloth. I mean, there's
Concrete.
so many, like there's just constant creations. I feel like the hard part is a character that's been created in the last 30 years that really like can stick around for a bit. Let me throw out
Amadeus
one.
Cho.
Amadeus
I like-
Cho, the new Blue Beetle, is
Mhm.
one.
Jaime Reyes.
Jaime
Kamala
Reyes.
Khan, Ben the Border Collie calls out in the comments. Also, Josh H said same thing. Miles Morales as well.
Yeah,
Great
Miles,
character.
yeah.
There you go. All right, we got some questions over at YouTube. This is from Nelson Martinez. Are you guys caught up on Reservation Dogs?
Hell
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
I was going to talk about that in the Weekend in the Geekin', but oh my God, some amazing touchings. I'm finally, since I'm living in my brother's house, he has television, like actual cable. So I get to watch like that kind of stuff, which is crazy. So I've been watching a lot of Reservation Dogs.
I'm not caught up yet, but it is literally the next show I'm gonna just.
You should. It's fucking fantastic.
Can't wait. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah. And Stanley over on YouTube says, are any of you going to New York Comic-Con? Any fun plans for the event? I'll say I haven't really looked into it too much yet, to be honest, but because a lot of other things have been going on, but I certainly plan on.
We get it.
a
You're
couple
busy. All right. You're going to
busy
Funko
guy.
Pop fucking meetings and shit. All right.
Funko Pop meetings.
I told Pete I went to Funko Investors Day at the beginning of the day, and I
He's a
explained this to
fucking
you,
investor.
Pete. I own 54% of Funko, so I had to go there. Yeah, 54% of Funko.
Yeah, I get
controlling
your
interest, if you
Your
will.
head.
Yeah,
would-
no.
But I'm a silent partner. I don't make a big deal about it. I don't like put Funko stuff behind my head while I'm taping a podcast. Or
Yeah,
anything
no,
like
you
that,
would
so.
never. I have to go to Ice Cream Con, so I'm going to be.
Look out for Ice Cream Man while you're there.
Yeah.
Yes, I am planning on going to New York Comic-Con. They're definitely going bigger than previous years as things, quote unquote, open up again. I put quotes there because obviously we're still in the middle of a pandemic, guys. But at the same time, there are a bunch of panels that are happening that I do think are interesting. Warner Brothers announced their stuff, and they're going to be doing Doom Patrol. We do a Doom Patrol podcast.
Great to
so
hear it.
that's exciting. Very excited to see that. There was at least one other thing that Warner Brothers was doing there that I was interested in. I am blanking on what it is. I know
Probably
they're also
Batman.
doing. No, I don't think they're. They definitely have some Harley Quinn stuff going on. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to check it out. They're certainly I appreciate that they are keeping things safe with vaccinations and masks, and they're being responsible there. Curious to see what it's like. I haven't been to a convention in years at this point, so
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
excited to check it out. We got just a couple more questions here. This one is from Jonathan McCool. What are your guys' favorite cartoon of all time? Doesn't have to be based on a comic, but most cartoons from back in the day either came from or became a comic at some point or another.
Great
Captain
question.
Bucky O'Hare. Come on. Let's go,
Yep.
Justin.
Let's crocus some toads is what I always
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of that. Something that I've been rewatching recently, Gargoyles, the Disney cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Huge fan. Deep mythology from at a time when it was like, you don't need to do this, but they did it. They got into some Shakespearean stuff, great interlocking stories. Really enjoyed that.
Lately, it's been Primal has been great. Samurai Jack. Oh man, I've watched so many cartoons. I'm just gonna leave real quick. Hopefully, they'll
Nice.
come back. Yeah, but I mean, as a kid, it was just Saturday mornings was the time, dude. It was all Mask and He-Man and Transformers and all that shit.
Truly. And I was about to say, Ben the Border Collie also saying Adventure Time, favorite, Avatar The Last Airbender, truly just great cartoons that I continue to rewatch.
Back in the day, I was definitely obsessed with the Tiny Toons Animaniacs block that was on.
yeah.
I would watch that almost religiously. Batman the Animated Series, of course. Going
Of course,
into
I mean,
Justice
you don't even have
Unlimited
to
and
say that.
everything.
I mean, everybody.
don't even say
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
understood.
And
yeah.
in terms of modern stuff, Futurama, it kind of went a little wobbly by the end there and with the movies and everything. But some of those earlier seasons are so phenomenal and just absolutely perfect. I think about them all the time. And for more recent stuff, the recent She-Ra series was superb from beginning to end. One of my favorite things of all time. Ben the Border Collie calls out Korra, a show that only got better over the course of the seasons. And I am very excitedly nervous for the new Avatar animated stuff that's coming out. Very scared of what they're going to do, but I can't wait to watch it.
Strong choices, I bet. Korra was such a strong choice coming off of Avatar, and I feel like they're only going to do the same.
And we got one last one. This is for our friend Stray Bullet. What is your favorite B-list monster like Chupacabra, Rougarou, etc.?
B-list monster. Would that even the Jersey Devil?
I don't know. Basket Case? I don't know.
You know what? This is one I've never even seen any of the movies, but Critters. I was always kind of obsessed with the posters for that when I was younger. I was like, these are A, clearly a Gremlins ripoff, but B, looks so hairy and so weird. I don't know what's going on with him. I never want to see the movie, but I'm kind of obsessed with him at the same time.
Well, that makes me want to shout out Tremors, a movie that I've seen so many times, like an unnecessary amount of times, and a monster where it's like, you could probably get away from that one, right?
Yeah. The other one that I'll shout out that was also like another Gremlins ripoff that was kind of the same time as Critters was Ghoulies. The thing that I only remember from the posters where it's like, I guess he lives in the toilet and he pops out of the toilet or something.
That was the tagline, right? I guess he lives in the toilet.
I think the tagline is something like, they're going to get you in the end.
Yo,
if
at the same time, Jonathan McCool and Aaron Dorian are saying, what about Ghoulies? Aaron says Ghoulies. What, linear thinking happening?
They're coming back. Due for a reboot. Netflix, you hear us? Bring it back.
Oh, my God.
All right, and that is it for your audience questions. We are going to move on to our next section, which is trivia, and for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
I don't know if we have time for trivia. This show,
it's running late. I don't know if there's any time. Zubs, do we have somebody, or are we going with first?
We do. We have You Nerd, who I think, if I'm guessing this correctly, is a frequent YouTube viewer who always misses the trivia section. So I think we have to bring them into the stream to do some trivia here. Did you actually come up with questions, or were you trying to avoid doing it, Pete?
No, I have questions. I was just, asking. Hey!
Hello!
In my car on my lunch break. I finally got to catch you live.
Are you
Hey, I got a question, real quick.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can I make history and be the first guy to purposely get a question wrong and lose trivia and donate my money to a charity? The San Filippo Foundation?
Wait, which was the foundation? Can you say it again?
San
I talked
Filippo.
over you. San
Filippo. It's a syndrome. My nephew has it. It's kind of close to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
No
yes,
problem.
absolutely.
Okay,
you don't
I
have
want
to
to
get
make
a question
history
wrong,
and
though.
lose.
Yeah, you don't have to get it wrong.
But then I could be the first one to ever lose trivia.
I mean, that's true.
Pete makes
I
it
love
so
that.
easy. For
Just
you.
a suggestion, not to plan this out in advance. It's particularly funny if you lose on the third question, but I'm just going to mention that. But go ahead, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do.
All right, today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Mary Alice, R.I.P. Please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. Batman and Blank reunite in a December crossover one-shot. So it's Batman and Blank. Is it A, Neil Diamond, B, Spawn, or C, Keith Diamond?
Well, I've seen ads for this, so Spawn.
Spawn is correct. Well done.
Wow, doing great so far.
Crushing.
Here we go. Question
I might
number...
recommend the C answers if you are looking to be incorrect.
Okay, here we go. Starting in December, Spider-Man's new big event will be called Blank. Is it A, Dark Web, B, Webinar, or C, Richard Libertini? So it's either Dark Web or it's B, Webinar.
I say Dark Web.
You are correct.
Yes.
Nice.
Here we go.
Oh, that's great.
The last one. New Boom comic dropping in October. It is called Approach. And what kind of horror series is it? Speaking of fun B-list horror monsters. Is it A, Gore Slam, B, Survival, or C, Malgorham?
It's definitely C, Mel Gorham.
Oh my God, you got it wrong. Oh my God.
What?
What?
See, that's never
Survival.
happened before.
That's
Survival horror.
oh my God! In the history of the show, nobody has ever lost. I'll tell you what. In lieu of a Midtown Comics gift card, we're going to donate the $25 to, correct me if I got the link wrong, but the Cure San Filippo Foundation at curesanfilippofoundation.org.
Exactly.
Does that work?
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no
that,
problem.
man.
We're going to do $25 there. Thank you for coming on. Glad it finally worked out time-wise.
Great,
Have a
man.
great
I love
night.
listening to you guys. You guys are awesome. Take care.
Oh, thanks so much.
you're
man.
on.
Take care of
Thank
yourself.
you. Have a great night.
Love having you in the chat.
All right, there we go. And again, I will drop this link in the chat there if anybody else would like to donate. In the meantime, new comics.
Well,
they're coming out. We
wanted
love them.
Just wanted
They're
to
cool.
like-
Oh, yeah. What was your secret? What was your
Yeah,
secret,
and
Pete?
of course, Kevin was correct. It is the 1990 hit Awakenings.
Oh, Wow.
And are you bringing back Robin Williams? Is that what you're doing? That was a Robin Williams movie.
Sneak it in, Robin Williams.
All right, what comics are you looking forward to that are coming out this week? Pete, what are you looking forward to?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to Do a Powerbomb number 4. I'm looking
call.
forward to Superman, Son of Kal-El number 15, and I'm also looking forward to Batman v Robin number 1.
Nice.
Justin, what about you?
Pete just said a lot of words and some numbers. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to shout out A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, number 11.
Can't wait to talk about that with you.
Can't wait to talk about that by Rick Remender, which brings the series to a close in a excellent way, I feel like. It is the last issue, oddly, in 11, as opposed to
Remender,
12.
man,
he does what he wants.
Exactly.
But let me also shout out Love Everlasting number 2 from time. Sorry, got you, Alex, twice. Twice, Alex.
Every single thing that, no, it's all of you. It's both of you have taken everything that I wanted to talk about. But go ahead, Justin.
Hey, that's what you get for going third. Tom King's sort of take on romance comics, which there is so much going on in these books, and you feel it, and it's just great to see Tom King operating sort of outside of the normal genres that you read his stuff in, and shout out to the art by Elsa Charretier.
I'm looking forward to Daredevil number 3 from Marvel. Chip Zdarsky has been knocking it out of the park every single time, but also given the cliffhanger at the end of last week's Punisher, I feel this weird sense of anticipation for everything that's going on in Daredevil as they seem to be tying together very slowly. So that's very exciting. I guess we'll see what happens. All of those books are going to be talked about in our Stack podcast that rolls out Wednesday, 9 a.m. in the Comic Book Club feed and in its own dedicated Stack feed. And folks, that is it for this week's Packed Shoe.
Great show. Great convos.
Couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Giles Clark for coming on. Check out ROUGAROU coming later this month. Also, Chris Gilberti and Phil Jimenez. Check out Zestworld as well as Phil's story comic on there specifically. Matthew Rosenberg. Check out absolutely everything from him. But in particular, ashcanpress.com, which has launched, and you can check out all the comics coming from there soon. Next week on the show, we have another packed show. We got Mike Spear, longtime listener and friend of the show, is going to be here to talk about CWL. Also, Nandor Schaefer is going to be here to talk about Manchild, and Declan Shalvey is going to be here to talk about Image Comics Old Dogs, as well as all the other things that he's working on, so that's very exciting. Bunch of other podcasts we need to plug. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast, as mentioned, just dropped a D23 episode, as well as She-Hulk every single week. The Doom Room, our Doom Patrol podcast, Thursdays with new episodes. You can get every episode at patreon.com/comicbookclub. Also, Riverdale After Dark. We just dropped a new episode interviewing none other than Nana Blossom.
So
Nana
cool, you guys
Rose
got to
Blossom
talk
herself. Barbara Wallace. Very fun. Patreon.com/comicbookclub, as I mentioned. Apple.
She's got some tape.
Apple, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice. Subscribe, listen, and follow at Comic Book Live on Twitter, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram, comicbookclublive.com. For this podcast and many more, until next time, good night!
Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourself.